Hello, everybody. We're going to go over the Declaration of Independence. So you need to have out your packet that says Declaration of Independence. Yours is not pink, but it will look like this. And you need to have out a highlighter to highlight certain information. You're also going to need a pencil to finish up the packet at the end. So please pause this video to get those things out. Packet, pencil, highlighter before you continue. Okay, now that we're set, we're going to start going through that. So I'm going to share my screen and I will tell you when you need to highlight, and that will help you to complete your work. So let me just share my screen here. Okay, so everybody should be able to see the Declaration of Independence packet that you have in front of you, with Thomas Paine here reading his own common sense. Now, this first portion we went through in class, so you should already have highlighted the idea of began near Boston with the battles of Lexington and Concord. So you should know where the Revolutionary War started. Make sure you have highlighted that Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense so that you know that. And that down here on the bottom, Thomas Jefferson was the one to draft the Declaration of Independence, and that all 13 colonies then ratified it on July 4th, 1776. You need to make sure that you know that date. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on the introduction. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the search the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. Okay, you need to underline or highlight the words, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands. Remember, this is a letter from the colonies to Great Britain, and they're saying they want to dissolve the political bands or get rid of. So they don't want to be connected anymore. This is essentially a breakup letter from the United States of America to Great Britain. We no longer want to be in a relationship with them. Therefore, you should also highlight the part that says, declare the causes which impel them to the separation. In other words, in this breakup letter, we are going to now announce what things led up to this. What were the causes of us wanting to break away? So please highlight that as well. Section 2 is called Citizens Have the Right to Self-Government. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Highlight that whole section. That's probably the most important section and the most well-known section of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Okay, that all men are created equal. Now remember, when he says all men, he does not mean any women, any natives, or any slaves. That they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. What that means is unalienable are ones that you cannot take away, that everyone has these rights, and they feel that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are ones that they all feel are really important. And so because of that, that's kind of the most important statement in the Declaration of Independence. So highlight that. It goes on to say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among the men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive, so highlight that part, government becomes destructive. The relationship is becoming toxic, is what it's saying. Okay, they think that this is becoming destructive and that this is a problem. It is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. Highlight that part. In other words, it's the right of the colonists to get rid of and break off this relationship and to go find another one, okay? To get rid of this government, this king who's bossing them around, this parliament who's telling them what to do, and to get rid of that and start their own government. So again, in the breakup scenario, this is, I want to break up with you and I want to go find somebody else. Okay, stop highlighting that. It says, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. Underline light and transient causes. In other words, this breakup is not for some silly little reason. This is not because you wore that ugly sweater the other day. It's something bigger than that. And so they're telling Britain that we've taken a lot of time and thought about this, and we're just realizing that this just isn't going to work. And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, underline that, long train of abuses and usurpations. In other words, when this has gone on for too long, it's time to cut it off. Pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is then right, underline that, it is then right. It is their duty, keep underlining, to throw off such government. Okay, stop highlighting there. It's our right and our duty as Americans to get rid of that government and start a new one, because there's no reason at all that we need to be living under such oppression. Okay, I'll keep reading. And to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. In other words, now it's time for us to change things up. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries. Underline that, repeated injuries. Okay, this isn't a one-time thing. This isn't a fight that happened once. The king continues to do the same thing over and over and over again. All having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. Underline the word tyranny. Okay, tyranny is basically calling him a name right there. And you're starting to call him a tyrant. So every time that comes up, that really loaded word of you're a tyrant, and you basically boss us around and tell us what to do, is really kind of digging at the king. An absolute tyranny over these states. Okay, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to highlight this last statement. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. This letter is not just going to Great Britain. They're sending it to everyone in the world. So everyone knows that they're free and open to trade with whomever. So in other words, this is like going on to social media and changing your relationship status to single. They're basically announcing, the colonists are, that they no longer want to be colonists. We are our own country, and you don't have to go through Britain to deal with us. If you want to trade with us, come see us. So the facts submitted to a candid world are when they're announcing it to everyone. Okay, again, as we go through this part, there's going to be a lot of highlighting. So please feel free to pause the video as necessary so that you don't miss anything. Okay, obviously the section 3 is about complaints against the king. They're wanting to show all of the things that the king has done over time that they've asked him to stop doing, that he just hasn't done. He continues over and over and over to abuse them with these different things. So we are going to highlight some of these words to make sure that we understand this. Sometimes it's going to be a word, sometimes it's going to be a phrase. Okay, so follow along. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Highlight the word refused. Again, this is a negative word that they're saying. We gave him a chance and he refused. He has forbidden, underline forbidden, his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. When so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. Again, negative words, forbidden, utterly neglected, not paying attention to us. He has refused, another negative word, to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. Again, we're calling him a tyrant. So that's a negative term. So we're poking fun now at him and we're saying, here's all the awful things you did. Okay, he has called together legislative bodies in unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. Okay, so highlight that whole section. He's wanted the legislative bodies to get together over in England. Okay, the parliament gets together in England, which is too far for the colonists to be traveling on a regular basis. So the sole purpose then is to exhaust the colonists into simply complying with what he wants. Okay, again, negative words. He has dissolved representative houses. We had representative houses under the hands-off part in the 1600s, but now they've gotten rid of those. So they've dissolved or gotten rid of these representative houses. So highlight the words dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasion on the rights of the people. Again, he's taken away the rights that they feel that they have. He has refused, negative word, for a long time after some dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state remaining, in the meantime, exposed to all the dangers of invasions from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent, another negative word, prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for the naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. Again, he's preventing them from doing things, and he's obstructing the laws that they feel they are entitled to. He has obstructed, again, there's that word, the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will along for their tenure of their offices and amount in payment of their salaries. All right, maybe you understood that part. Basically, he's saying if the judges aren't determining things his way, he doesn't particularly like that. So he may fire them or may not even pay their salaries if they don't rule in his favor. That obviously is not a fair judge. He has erected multitudes of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Okay, highlight that. Harass our people and eat out their substance. He's really getting warmed up now. So Thomas Jefferson is starting to get really negative and really point out all of their stuff. Harass, eat out their substance. He's getting pretty angry now. Okay, highlight this part. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. Okay, this is important because, again, this is the Quartering Act. The Quartering Act said that soldiers needed to be housed by the colonists because they didn't have the money to pay for housing for them. So therefore, people could have some strange men living in their house simply because they needed to house and take care of soldiers. Okay, no highlighting here. He is affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Highlight this part. For quartering large armies of armed troops among us, the Quartering Act. For protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Highlight this next part. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. England didn't want us trading with France or Spain or any place else for that matter. They only wanted us trading with them. If we trade with other lands, though, we might be able to make more money. Highlight this part. For imposing taxes on us without our consent. Taxes without choices. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Highlight that part. Again, not fair trials, simply putting people in jail for no reason. Keep highlighting. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. They're saying that these aren't really even laws, and then they're making them go all the way over to England to have them be tried. for abolishing the free system of English laws. Highlight that part, abolishing, getting rid of the laws that they feel that they are entitled to. Okay, stop highlighting. Establishing there in an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. They're talking about areas up in Canada that seem to be much more willing to go with the flow on these things. And so they're basically saying in this neighboring province, you're letting them have more rules than you are us. Okay, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Okay, he has abdicated governments here, declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Okay, waging war against us. Highlight those couple words, 4 words. Waging war against us. This isn't our war. He started it. Okay, and that's what's very common in a breakup letter. This isn't my fault. You started the fighting. Okay, waging war against us. All right, highlight this part. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burns our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. Okay, again, highlight this. He's really getting angry and saying, basically, you're ruining our life, which again, would commonly be found in a breakup letter. Keep highlighting. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. Okay, here's what he's saying now. You've sent over foreign mercenaries. You've literally run out of British soldiers. So you're now bringing in German soldiers that you are paying to fight for you. And you are having them come over to continue your terrible acts. And then he says at the end that not only are you not worthy of being our leader, you're unworthy of being the head of any civilized nation. So in terms of a breakup, not only are you not a good boyfriend for me, you're basically not a good human being for anyone. Really laying it on thick now. Okay. So the next part then, he has constrained our fellow citizens, no highlighting, taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. What is that talking about? Well, what happens is they're starting to capture Americans and capture these colonists and force them to be British soldiers. And if they choose not to do that, their only way out is to end things themselves. So again, pointing out some of the awful things he's done. He has excited domestic insurrection among us. In other words, now we're fighting amongst ourselves, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Now he's throwing in there that the Indians are pretty bad too. Okay, this next part then is called the King and Parliament have refused to change their policies. Basically, it's saying, I've given you chances. Okay, I've told you not to do these things. You keep doing them anyway. So I can't take it anymore. So here's what it says. Highlight this part. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Keep highlighting. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. So what is that saying? I've asked you to stop. You keep making it worse. And then they go on to say, no highlighting, a prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Again, throwing that in there. You are a tyrant. You are so unworthy and so unfit to be with us and lead us. You shouldn't be leading anybody. So again, in the breakup letter scenario, you shouldn't be anybody's boyfriend. All right, stop highlighting. Nor have we been wanting in our attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. Okay. In other words, we've talked to people who want to stay with you, and we've shown them all of these things that you guys have done wrong. Okay. Now highlight this part. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. In other words, we're trying to reason with them because they're British too. Why won't they just listen to us that you're bad? Okay, stop highlighting. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred, we're British too, to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too, highlight this part, have been deaf to the voice of justice. They're not listening to us. We're telling them how awful you are to us. And if they don't watch out, you're going to be awful to them too. Have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. Okay, so highlight that part. Stop highlighting them. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. Okay, highlight that last part, enemies in war, in peace friends. In a breakup letter, how does that work? I don't want you. I don't think you should be with anyone. But when this is all over, oh, here's the big line. I think we should be friends. Okay, so enemies in war, and hopefully when war is over and we're our own independent nation, we can do some trade together. Okay, and the last part. Here is the official declaration saying we're done, and here's what we shall now be known as. This is the first time ever that you've seen the words the United States of America at this point of history, because this is the first time they're announcing what their new country is going to be called. So last section, section 5, the colonies declare their independence. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, highlight the United States of America. That's what we're called. And General Congress assembled, appealed to the Supreme Court of the world for the rectitude of our intentions due in the name by authority of, highlight this part, the good people of these colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. That's it. We're breaking up. That they are, keep highlighting, absolved from all allegiance to the British crown. We're not together anymore. We have no connection to the British. Keep highlighting. And that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. We're done. We are a free country. We are independent. Don't go to Britain to talk to us. And that as free and independent states, and since we are now free, they have the full power, highlight this part, full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, which is trade. You can stop highlighting now, and do all other acts and things which independent states may have right do. We're not together anymore. We can do our own thing. We can hang out with whoever we want to. We can have deals made with whomever we want to. That's now our right. And for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance of the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. All right, and that's officially the Declaration of Independence broken down into a breakup letter between the United States and Great Britain, letting them know all the awful things that the King and Parliament did, why they are breaking up with them, and now what we shall be called. Now, there are questions on the packet on the bottom here, and then on to the next page. All those things I just told you to highlight, that's what you're going to use to answer these questions. So your homework is to make sure that you have completed this packet. Then there will also be some activities and games for you to play to help you review what the Declaration of Independence is. Why do you need to get this packet done? Well, my friends, you're going to use this packet for a quiz tomorrow. So please make sure that you come prepared. If you missed any of this or weren't paying attention, rewind and start again. All right, good luck.